Hey y'all, it is Kayla and Heather with Tactical
Hello.
Response. And we wanted to share with you guys about the Magdumps and Mascara class that we put on with American Gun Chick / Honey Badger. It was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it was awesome. We pretty much sold out within like the first week, 2 weeks
Yep.
maybe. It was really fast, and I mean, the girls that came, they were all just incredible. It's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks now since the class, and we've pretty much stayed in contact with all of them, and everybody, made friends, and it was really, really cool.
So the idea behind the class was last year, Heather and I were talking about doing like an all-girls class.
Yep.
And my dad said it can't be fighting pistol because that class is about gunfighting. And while we do try to make as many accommodations as possible, taking men out of the equation is not conducive to what we want you to get out of that class.
Right. Well, because there's going to be men in the
Right.
world, right? And so to have a class where it's only females, I mean, like I said, that doesn't really transfer to the real world necessarily. So.
And then his other rule was that if it's going to be an all-girls class, then it has to be all-girl instructors.
Yeah.
So we thought about it and got with Brickell from the Honey Badger and American Gun Chick. And since she, that is her thing, she does a lot of female training. We were like, hey, do you want to partner up with us on this so that we can get more students in here? Like, we know what Brickell teaches. It lines up really similar with ours. So, of course, she agreed. She loved the idea.
Yeah.
And we started putting together a curriculum that would build up women's confidence to come to training.
Yes. So whenever we first announced it, there was a little bit of pushback, some negative things that kind of went along with it from a lot of mostly, men who that was their thing, was like, that's not, that doesn't transfer to real world,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And they were like, you're not supposed to have a women's fighting pistol. We're like, you don't understand. That's not what this is.
This
right?
was not fighting pistol.
Yeah.
This was like an introduction to training.
Yes.
And with the number of dudes that have reached out to me over the years, they'd be like, Kayla, how do I get my lady involved?
Yeah.
Like, this is how you get your ladies involved.
Yeah.
We had our youngest student was Amaya, Heather's daughter, and she is a young teenager.
Yep.
And then our oldest student was
Linda.
Miss Linda, and she was in her 60s.
Yeah.
And so there was this range of ages there, definite range of personalities and what people do.
Yeah.
And the slumber party was a necessary part of getting the entirety of what we wanted you to get out of that class.
Well, so if I may, whenever people come to take fighting pistol and they stay in the team room, they talk about this brotherhood and this connection that's formed. And I know it's going to sound cheesy, but it was like a sisterhood that was formed, right? And so everyone that stayed for the slumber party all got to take that time to kind of connect with each other. We talked about more training, and they asked some questions about training, and then some of it was just fun, right? Everybody told stories and hung out, and it was really, really cool.
So before we dive into all the discussions from class, let me just explain the setup. So in the morning of, because it was a 1-day class, really, the curriculum that you were getting a certificate for was 8 hours. So in the morning, the first half of the day, we were in the classroom and we went over like the stuff that you would typically see at like a basic NRA class, like, hey, this is how a gun works, and this is safeties and stuff like that. Granted, the tactical response spin on that.
Yeah. Some of it was the boring stuff, like the nomenclature and just like jargon that you will hear whenever you go to do these things.
But we also did a couple of special sections that were geared towards women. My favorite was the mindset portion. Like, we went over like situational awareness and things like that. I told a story that I'll share later on in the podcast that really helped things hit home for a lot of the women in class. And then the other fan favorite was the different carry positions for women.
Yes. And just the different ways that, you know, women carry. And a lot of the times when they go to classes, they have male instructors or people that even if they haven't taken the class yet, because some of them, this was their first ever class. You know, it's their husbands or brothers or dad or whoever. It's a man in their life that's talking to them about carrying. And whenever they're giving them the option and telling them how to do it, it's coming from the perspective of a male. And most of the holsters and things like that in the industry are built by men for men. So they thought it was just amazing because we all, like, Brickell had a different holster and kind of a different setup than I had, and I had a different setup than Kayla had. And then we also talked about things that, like, no, maybe I don't necessarily do, but like different ways. And we gave them a couple of like YouTube channel, a little bit of homework to go back and watch. And, you know, because nowadays they have like the wedges and different things. And so you can really change how it sits in on your body.
What's funny is, though, like the favorite holster from that class, like that all the girls were the most excited about, was actually recommended by Lewis.
Yeah, it was.
And that is the Enigma.
Yeah, which, you know, for the class, I was carrying strong side because we were using like the red guns for demonstrations and stuff, and we don't have an Enigma that will fit that. So I was carrying strong side for the class. And whenever we went out to the range, I had brought my Enigma, and whenever I put it on and let them see it, they were just like, holy shit, like it disappeared. We don't even see that you're carrying it. And I didn't get too into the weeds with them about, you know, in the winter and like even spring and fall, it's pretty easy to conceal. I have not been carrying the Enigma in the summertime yet, and so that is going to kind of be like a whole other thing because women want to look nice.
Yep.
They're not going to dress like a man, and so they have to be able to conceal carry and still feel confident and good in the way that they look.
Yep.
And so it is going to kind of bring on a whole new set of challenges, is making sure that like you can look good even when it's hot outside, and you know, like your clothes, you want it to be you know, like you want it to accentuate the parts that you want when you're dressing, right? And so, but anyway, I thought it was really cool because we got to touch on that stuff, and they loved it.
And a lot of women in that class made the decision to start carrying daily because of the options that were offered up to them.
Yeah.
And the rest of the day, like, because it helps to have the confidence in knowing that you can make your hits. The rest of the day was range time. So the first half was in the classroom. The second half was range time. And we built up, like, ground up fundamentals.
Yeah.
And that's all the class was fundamentals. Like, each drill had a specific fundamental in mind that we wanted you to get good at. And anytime you're working with a new shooter, you want to focus on one thing. So we like started with, okay, what's the thing that we've got to make sure that they're doing right? Well, they show up to the range, they've got to be able to get their gun out of a holster. So let's start with draw. And it was actually a reminder lesson because we went over all of that stuff in the classroom too.
We did, with like the red guns demonstrating it. And
I really felt like it was a game changer for how quickly everybody picked up on it.
Well, and also what was cool was in the classroom, I liked how we set up 2 lines. We had multiple red guns, right? And so we actually set up 2 lines, and we let them practice with the red gun reloads and tapping racks before we went out there, because this was, for some of them, they had never really even touched a gun before.
No, we had at least one student in class who I believe she fired her first full magazine in our class.
Yeah. And so the fact that they knew what all the parts of the gun were called. So if I told them, like, you're going to put your hand on the slide, they knew what I was talking about, right? And so being able to, like, they knew what we were talking about. They knew what we were saying. And then they actually got their hands on it before we got on the range. So that wasn't the first time. So it was a little less scary because it wasn't as foreign to them by the time they got out there. I thought that was really important. And I think that it helped to make sure that they were confident in what they were doing and what we wanted them to do once we were on the range.
Right. And the funny thing about this class is specifically the range portion.
Yeah.
Like, the classroom portion was tailored to women, but the range portion of this class is an incredible, like, building block system for any new shooter that's looking to carry for defensive purposes.
Yeah. Well, and I might be skipping ahead a little, but by the very last thing that we did was we let them shoot steel, just because
Let freedom ring. That's what we call that drill.
Well, it's just really fun to shoot steel. And so to safely shoot steel, you have to be about 10 yards away. And so we had these people, a couple of which had never really shot before that day, 10 yards shooting steel, and they were fucking, like, nailing it. And we told them, for the majority of the day, we gave specific round counts, right? But for that, I was like, you get to choose. Like, if you shoot 4 or 5 and you're just like, okay, I'm done, I had my fill, like, cool. But if you want to, like, dump a mag and reload and dump another, like, go for it. And they were coming back.
Yeah.
So we would go down the line, and then as soon as they were done, they were going and refilling their mags and then coming back, and they were like, all right, I'm ready to do it again, right?
Yeah.
And then like, we had Rosie went first, and I think she intimidated a couple of them because she's
had fighting pistol before.
Yeah, she's trained a couple of times with us, and so I had, like, barrels set up for them to know where they needed to stand, right? And I was like, hey, we're going to stand here. And I explained, like, we have to keep a certain distance. And Rosie immediately started, like, trying to go around the barrels. Yeah. But she was trying to get too close, so I kept having to go. And, like, I was grabbing her by the belt loop and, like, pulling her back. But the next person who came up, their eyes were kind of big because Rosie was moving and shooting. And I was just like, you don't have to move. Like,
no,
you just stand still.
The key part of this class was, like, making them fall in love with training.
Well, and just building that confidence.
Yes.
We wanted them to leave feeling like, I can do this.
Yeah. And whenever that is building that confidence is how you make them fall in love with training. Because, and this is, like, I still have most of the targets from the class in my van.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed. And this is not, like, me blowing smoke. I've been to hundreds of fighting pistol classes, at least, like, just visiting. I've taken it myself dozens of times. And the targets from that class, there was one target that had any rounds outside of the silhouette. And that happened because of a wrist injury. They weren't able to hold on to the gun as well. And as soon as I went up to the person, I was like, hey, we're going to switch to left-handed. And they're like, what? Like, time out. I've never shot left-handed before. I'm like, okay, so you're just going to slow down and make it listen to you. Like, our offhand is our dumb hand. And as soon as we switched to left hand and had her start shooting that way, the groups immediately, like, I think there was 2 rounds outside of it because we caught it as soon as we saw her groups open up, like, hey, what's going on? And she had, her wrist was hurt from earlier in the week at work. And by that point, like, she was like an hour or 2 into range time, it was swelling up and hurting. So we were like, switch. As soon as we made that change, they whoop right back in. Like
Yeah.
there were not many targets that still had the heart box intact.
Yeah, they did amazing.
And we did the entire class at the same range that we do the fighting pistol class, like same distance from the targets. Like we used all the same markers and everything.
Yep.
And these women were just nailing it.
Yeah. No, they did. And again, like I cannot stress the importance of a beginner class being just to build confidence.
Right. So, quick message from our sponsors, Midwest Industries. They make really good quality stuff, and they come out with the new AK Alpha series. You can go check out our YouTube channel to see the review of this. Get on over to Midwest Industries website, check this stuff out. I know Joey said it was pristine shooting the AK with these accessories on it.
Yeah.
So, where were we?
So
The targets.
Yeah, and we had just talked about kind of how really, making them confident was the biggest thing, especially for like somebody that's beginner, right? So if it's a beginner class, or if it's even, I would say, a class where, there's not really any prerequisites to get in it, and it's not targeted to like instructors or whatever, like the primary focus should be getting that confidence.
When it is a beginner's level class, then that is your target focus. Like the first time that somebody is out there, if they are on the fence about what they want this stuff for, like it needs to be straight confidence building. And we do that in fighting pistol. Yeah. Like we build up their confidence in that class. But we put more emphasis on keeping things like fun and interactive in the Magdumps and Mascara class because like overall you don't see as many girls here.
Right.
You don't. And we want them to love it as much as we do. And like we tell people this all the time, like once we get them here, we can keep them. It's going to be a good time.
Absolutely.
And it was really funny because when we were talking about doing the next Magdumps and Mascara class, like over half the class was like, when is it? I want to sign up for it. Like, ladies, you got to let other girls in too.
I know. They were all ready. They were like, all right, let's go.
But they want to take it again, and we're gonna put it on again.
Yeah. And I already have, I think 4 of them were like, can you please go ahead and just at least put me on like the email list to email me as soon as it goes up. Because, there's only 3 of us, so we have a cap on that class. We can't just let it get out of hand, right? But I think that there's going to be room. I mean, I already, from the class filling up before, I actually had about 3 people on the wait list. So they'll be getting the email as well. So, I mean, we already have probably like 6 or 7 people that I'm having to email for whenever we announce the dates for the next one.
And then a special shout out to Amanda Davis. Like Heather Brickell and I were the ones like teaching the class as a whole, but we had one of our students that had a revolver, and the class was designed for semi-automatic pistols. But whenever we were doing the classroom portion, she was having trouble manipulating the red guns and was like, I carry a revolver. I'd really like to take the class with it. So we made the accommodations, and Amanda hung out down there with her and like helped alter the drills and stuff to make it work for her. And she ran that revolver.
She did so
a 357. Well. Okay, a 350 or was 357 or 38? It was a 357.
I don't remember.
I don't know. It was like I have shot probably close to 250,000 rounds in my life, and that is not an exaggeration. There was one year I did the count, and I fired 18,000 rounds in one year just in training classes, like just professional classes. That didn't include the times when I would go to the range on my own, or the mag here and the mag there. And when I was a little girl, that was one of my dad and I's favorite activities to do together, was to go shoot. And it was nothing, like he used to reload ammo back then. And so it was nothing for us to go out and put a couple hundred rounds downrange in at like every single week. So I've fired close to 250,000 rounds in my lifetime. And after one cylinder through a revolver, it was a .357 caliber. I was like, I'm done. Like, that was not fun. I did not enjoy that. Like, it hurts my wrist.
I will say this.
It was a lightweight.
Yeah. So I'd never really shot revolvers up until this year. I'd only shot, the semi-auto pistols for handguns. And I went out with Tim, and James had given me a little snub nose revolver, a little 38 special that I'd never went and shot it before, because I was like, I kind of would prefer to shoot with a shield over here or whatever, or the Glock or whatever, right? I shot mine, and I was like, that kind of fucking sucks. I was like, why, I don't like that. And Tim was like, well, here, I have this one. And I cannot remember, because, again, revolvers aren't really my thing, so I don't recall what kind it was. But it was actually nice. I was like, oh, wow. I was like,
when
that's
you get the
way
big,
better.
heavy revolvers, they are fun to shoot. But hers were similar in size to the one that I shot. It was not a lightweight.
Oh, no, see, it looked to me, hers was actually bigger than the one I shot of Tim's.
Okay.
Yeah. And Tim's was fine. I was like, that's nice. Okay.
Well, the one that I shot, I was just like, nope, I'm done. I don't like it. So I was super impressed with her to complete the entire class, because we did take a 22 to where the slide on that is easily manipulated with just two fingers.
It was the Ruger.
Yeah, we took the Ruger 22 out there just in case she needed to switch over to that instead of the revolvers. But she completed the class with the revolver, and that is in large part due to Amanda Davis being able to work one-on-one with her, and then one-on-one with another student who was having some anxiety issues. Because even though this was a beginner class, we still taught it from a martial standpoint.
We did.
Like, everything that we were teaching you was better preparing you to have to use that tool to defend your life with. And that stayed at the forefront of why we're learning this stuff, while still keeping everything fun. The drills and the talking in between, but like during the drills themselves, it was like, okay, that person in front of you is a bad guy and he's trying to hurt you. And what was the most unexpected thing that I heard about the class was the number of women who had, prior to this, been uncomfortable yelling stop.
Yeah.
One of the girls, she was just like, that was the hardest part of the class for her, was finding her voice and like saying stop like she meant it. We had a fighting pistol alumni, and she was just like, when I was in fighting pistol, like, I was nervous and afraid to yell it and really say it loud. And when we were doing the mindset portion, I told all the girls in class a story that happened to me, and the word stop, along with me having my gun on me, saved my life. I was like 21-ish. Like,
I have no idea.
It was 15-ish years ago, 10, 15 years ago at this point. I was living in a house in Paris, and right down the road from my house was a little gas station. And Alex and I were going to have a movie night, so I ran down to the gas station to grab like snacks and drinks, like for a little movie night. And when it was 8:30, 8:45, so it wasn't like nothing good happens after 2 a.m. kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it was dusk outside. And I walk into the store and begin my shopping. There is one person checking, like actively checking out, and then two men standing behind him in line, and the male clerk. And it takes me maybe a minute to get the stuff that I was there to get, and I'm in line. The two guys say, hey, go ahead in front of me. So I do. I'm like, thanks. Immediately, they started talking in very aggressive, sexually explicit tones. Like, they were saying nasty things that they wanted to do to me. Violent, nasty things that they wanted to do to me. And I ignored it. Like, the hair started tingling, like lifting, like all that stuff that happens. Like, okay, just get your purchase and get out. Ignore it. Don't interact, whatever. And one of the guys taps me on my shoulder and said, hey, give me your number. And I said, no, thanks. I'm married. Like, I wasn't, but I wanted to give him an out on why he was being turned down without it making him lose face. And he grabbed me, forcibly spun me around, and pushed his chest into me and said, I didn't ask if you were married. I said, give me your number, bitch. And at that moment, I knew I was in a fight for my life. I left everything on the counter, my money, my stuff, and I was a broke college kid at this time. Like, that $10 was a lot. Like, that was my budget to do something fun for the entire week. I left it on the counter, started walking out of the store. The clerk saw them begin to follow me, and he threatened to call. He was like, hey, if you don't leave her alone, I'm calling the cops. They completely ignored him and continued to follow me. When I realized that they were still behind me, I started running to my car, and they started chasing me. Yep. I was carrying in my Maxpedition Jumbo Versi pack at the time, and still faced away from them. I unzipped the top of it, got my hand on the gun, turned to face them, drew my gun, and yelled, stop. Like, yelled it. It was, stop! And as soon as I did that, they did. They stopped. And it immediately went into, like, just me being other bad things, but it went back to just, like, verbal stuff. And I got in my car and I left. And it was absolutely terrifying, but also it gave me a sense of, holy shit, I can do this. Like, I can take care of myself. I didn't need anybody else around. Like, because the clerk being there didn't stop it.
No, it won't.
The clerk threatening to call 911 didn't stop it. Me going outside and trying to walk away, like, didn't stop it. It took me drawing my gun and yelling stop at them like I meant it for them to stop. And I shared that story with the girls in class, and I think it helped them to find that on the range. Like, the ones who were nervous, I'm like, that word saved my life. You have to be able to say it and own it. Let them know that if they don't, like, the word in and of itself has to carry the implication that if you don't listen, there will be repercussions.
Right. Yeah.
And it was like, I got chills hearing all of the girls on the line yell it in that tone.
Yeah, no, I have to agree. Like, whenever they went to yell it, like, right, it was all of them across the line, and it was loud, right?
Like a guttural reaction.
Yeah. And I know, being on the line and, having seen other women on the line, that you can hear it. You know what I mean? Like, typically you hear the men well over the women whenever they're in the class, if it's a mix, and it didn't feel like that. And so that was awesome.
Like, their volume was louder. Like, there was passion behind that word because they knew they were training to be able to save themselves or somebody else.
Yeah.
And you could, like, I think that is my favorite part about teaching any classes, is like seeing that light bulb moment where
absolutely.
you see the person get confident in, like, I've got this.
Yeah, not absolutely. Like just seeing that switch go off, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like one of my personal friends had come to take that class. And, before they were scared to kind of go out. They were a little nervous about going and shooting. And then she was like, can we do double dates where we go to the range? And I'm like, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
And so before it was this really nervous thing, and it's not there anymore. And I think that that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And, and I felt like she really needed it. She works in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
She, is a lot of the time she works a swing shift. So sometimes it's late at night, and it's different hours of the day. And so it was something that I was like, she needed that confidence boost.
Yeah. And then after class, we showed everybody how to like clean their guns, break them down on the ones that we had, and then offered to like help them at the cabin whenever we got back.
So we're going to take a moment to talk to you about Defiant Munitions. They make the best carry ammo on the market, like hands down. Pete is the owner and he runs it. And I mean,
he hand checks every single piece of ammo that goes out of there.
I mean, this is all that we use for our, EDC carry ammo now. And if you want to go and check it out, we do have a coupon code. It is Jaeger23. Do you know how much?
All caps, Jaeger23. It is 10% off. And you should absolutely check out their new 380 defensive round.
Oh, yeah.
It is the only 380 on the market that competes at FBI standards.
Yeah. And I didn't know this. They also do make range ammo.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like zombie killer. Nope, they also make range ammo. But
and their range ammo holds the same zeros as their training ammo. So it's easily...
Which is awesome. So
Alrighty.
Go and make sure that you guys check them out.
Jaeger23, all caps, YEAGER 23.
So you had just told us, the story, and we had talked about how, with the women, they really kind of found their voice in the class because they didn't have that fear of, the men kind of, I don't know. I feel like they fear them judging them or almost looking down on them.
I don't think that's a problem that's specific to women, though. I see it with other dudes in the class.
Yeah. I don't know if it's their ego thing or what it is.
You have to get yourself into the mindset of, like, why you're here.
Yeah.
And it can feel silly to yell, stop, when there's nothing actually going on. Until you tell yourself, I'm training myself to say it like this because one day I might actually have to say it while I'm in a fight for my life.
Yeah. Well, and I know for a lot of women, though, whenever they go to take these classes and they'll be the only woman in the class, or maybe there's one or two other women, I'm guilty of it too, right? Like if I'm in a class and I'm the only woman, like if I like get hurt in a class by like, maybe I like sprained my ankle when I was running from one point of cover to the next or whatever that is, right? Maybe I fucking jammed my finger somehow and it's hurting. Like I am unlikely to speak up and say like I hurt my ankle or I hurt my finger or whatever. Just because I'm like, you don't want to be like that guy in class, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I want to look like I'm tough and like I know what I'm doing. And so like you're not as likely to say something. Or if you don't fully understand what they've just explained, if all the men look like they understand it, you're less likely to raise your hand and be like, I don't understand it. Can you repeat that? If you're the only woman in class and all the men act like they do, even though
they're only acting. If you've got questions, they probably do too.
Right? But it's just one of those things that you're like, you don't want to be viewed as, the woman in class doesn't know. And so I don't know, kind of, I'm talking and I don't know if it's all going to make sense, but to me it comes full circle. I think that in the all women's class, like
it takes that stigma away.
It took that away, right? And so now whenever they do go to a class, they'll have a different class. They'll have a certain level of confidence now.
Confidence and competence.
Yes, because now they know.
When you are performing the way that they were performing, and that I'm talking about actual like tactics and skill. Like we were having them move when they drew their gun. We were having them yell stop. We were having them do everything that we have you do in fighting pistol, just not as like, we just didn't get as far into like the whys and the stuff like that. We were teaching competence as well. And the confidence comes from that.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that I think was kind of cool that we did, and I know like it comes in fighting pistol as a big part of the lecture on day 2, but we also kind of talked to them like, hey, we're teaching you how to use your gun if this kind of thing happens, like, you know, giving them the confidence to do that. But we also talked about avoidance and deterrence and things like that. We talked about books that they could read. We gave them, you know,
The Gift of Fear by Gab. If you can get over the anti-gun stuff, and just take it for what it, like, the message is, and that is you've got to get your head out of your ass. You have to be situationally aware. And like, it's something that we don't like to talk about. We don't like to bring up, but it is it is becoming more common knowledge. Like, women don't get you can't afford to have your head up your ass.
Right. But we also talked about we gave
neither
them,
can dudes. Y'all die way more often.
Yeah. Women tend to live longer. But we also told them, you know, Colonel Cooper's book, and those to me are really pretty short and easy reads. They're not very difficult reads.
Of course, the 4 Pillars of Fighting.
We also did that one.
Yeah.
But I think that also kind of made them feel good, and it gave them another level of confidence, right?
Well, when you come at somebody with a problem, you also have to include a solution to that problem. And that is what training is we are telling you all of this stuff that is a real potential threat, and then how to fix it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very important part of it, making sure that you've covered all your bases, is have I offered them a solution to every problem that I've brought up?
Yeah.
And we talked about, like, you need something between a harsh word and a handgun. You need to carry pepper spray, and there are other things in between this. And it was very heartwarming to see how many women wanted to continue.
Oh, absolutely.
Their training and stuff like that. They're signing up for other classes, like not just the ones here, but it got more than one comfortable with taking fighting pistol now. Other girls were talking about other instructors and other classes, and we listed some reputable people that they could go and train with. There were women here from all over the country.
Yeah. They came from like all 4 corners, which was really, really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then that evening with the slumber party, we ordered pizza, and we had Amanda was giving mini massages out, and Belinda was doing the facials for everyone.
Which, I mean, she was the real MVP of that night, because she was doing that until like 1 a.m.
Yeah,
like she did that all night. She even, I think Amanda, she was like, "Can I get a massage from you after bending over doing these facials forever? Like, my back is hurting." And so Amanda gave her a massage, and they both had volunteered to do that, which was amazing.
Yes.
Rosie made all those.
Rosie made
treats.
Snacks for everybody, and they were all like super healthy keto snacks and tasted incredible.
I mean, who was the one that brought the not healthy snacks? That was like the Oreos dipped in chocolate.
I don't remember.
Those were so good.
Yeah, those were.
Was it Sheila's neighbor Stephanie that made those?
I think so.
Yeah, which she actually lives here, and she took the class, and she was so funny. She told her husband, because her husband was taking fighting pistol like 2 weeks later, and she's like, "I became an alumni before you did." She's like, "I'm already in the group." And I thought that was really funny that she was like, "I'm a part of this before you were a part of it."
It was an absolutely amazing bonding experience to get to hang out. And like Heather was talking about earlier with the team room, this, like, we're all in a group message together on Facebook now.
Yeah.
Like, this is building lifelong friendships, and it keeps it, like, there was a stigma years ago, like 20, 30 years ago, when I was starting out in the industry, like, about girls being too girly for this stuff. That's disappearing. Like
Yep.
more dudes want their wives involved, and they still want their wives to look pretty.
Yeah,
So
do.
that stigma is going away. It's disappearing. And this class kind of helped, like, hey, ladies, I know that it hasn't always been like a super, like, you can be a girl and show up, but it is now.
Yeah.
And especially among the people that here at Tactical Response, the kind of alumni that we have, and then a lot of the other people that we train with, like John Farnham and Clint Smith, like Heidi, like, she's a fucking beast.
Yeah.
And like, her and my mom, when they went to SHOT Show together, would spend hours getting ready. So
Yeah.
you can be girly and super into this stuff, and it's not only welcomed but accepted now.
Oh yeah, like I just took Brian's every night pistol class, and it was me and a woman named Lydia that took it, and it was really cool because whenever we went to reload our mags, the guys would offer, like, if they finished before us, they are more than willing, like, they were helping, and they totally, like, I don't know, like, it feels nice because
There
it's
was
not like
chivalry without the
yes,
like extra stuff that the media tries to say is
Right.
there. There was
Yes.
no like, hey, little lady, let me take care of that for you. It was like, hey, Heather, do you need help with that? I'm finished. Let me help.
Yes. And so, like,
But they
they're
do it for
always-
other dudes too. Like,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
kind of something that happens in all of our classes here at Tactical Response. Is if you finish up loading your mags first, move on to somebody who isn't finished. Not only does that help keep the class rolling smoother, but it gives you the opportunity to have conversations. Like, the best conversations of that class took place on breaks.
Yeah.
And that's typical of most of our classes. Like, you learn a lot during the breaks too.
I'm like, breaks? What breaks? Like, we didn't have breaks. They did. We didn't.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
And then Sunday morning after we all stayed up, like, I think the party pretty much, I say party,
Slumber party.
like, yeah, the slumber party pretty much died down by about 12:30 or 1 a.m. for most people.
Yeah.
The next morning we got up and we went on a Pearl tour. So there was something there for everybody. And then after that, we had the machine gun shoot.
Yeah, which was really
And
cool.
Bruce Swindle from Wolf River Precision brought down some machine guns for us. And one of the girls in our class was struggling to get over her anxiety enough to participate in drills the day before.
Yep.
She stood there and watched it. It took in every single thing that we were teaching, but struggled a little bit with participation. And then, like, by the next day, by the end of the range day, and again, Amanda worked with her a lot. By the end of that, we had her shooting a machine gun. And, like, for the last couple of rounds, she even switched it to full auto.
Yeah.
And
And
that-
she was nailing the steel with it, which
Yeah.
was really cool.
That's big.
Yeah.
But that kind of wraps up, like, the ladies' weekend. We're definitely putting another one in. We're getting with Brickell to pick out dates. I know October was flying around. We are slammed that month, so be
Yeah.
looking for September or November. And then there was talk of, like, making this
Like a yearly
a
women's
regular
retreat.
thing, like, to where we do, like, the class, and then when we build up quite a few alumni, doing like a little, like, ladies retreat every year where you get to mix the guns and you get to mix the Magdumps and the mascara.
Yeah.
Remember, guys, your responsibility
To be ready for the fight.
never ends.